Hello ladies and gentlemen, this will be a Terran vs. Terran build. Gonna give you an example of the best build I know of in Terran vs. Terran. And first thing I would recommend is building tight. You don't want any siege tanks rolling up to your edges and blasting things around the edges of your base. You can put your own siege tanks, around the perimeter when you get them, and then move out a little bit. Second thing I'd recommend is building a bunker here just to hold off any kind of mass infantry attack if they know you're going siege tank. And I do go siege tank as fast as possible because I think siege tanks really are a game-winning battle in 1 vs. 1. And it's not necessarily who gets the most siege tanks, but who uses them the most strategically. My opponent in this game actually gets a lot more siege tanks than I do, but I was able to use them more strategically. The second thing I'd recommend is make sure to scout, because you want to make sure your opponent is not going for early cloaked banshee, because if he is, you're going to have to build a lot more marines, you're going to have to build some missile turrets, you're going to have to maybe save a scan. Really changes the dynamic of the game. Go ahead and I build some turrets anyway because it's just to save myself from drops or future banshees. But they're so expensive, I really don't like building them, but I just feel like I have no other option sometimes. So at this point, I have not scouted. Really bad. I really need to scout. So I'm getting out a Reaper, and I'm just gonna have them. I'm not gonna micro him too much. I'm just gonna have him angle in to the opposing player's base as soon as possible. Because at this point, I think I built these turrets because it was possible that he could have had a Banshee. So ideally you'd want to do this sooner, although a Banshee doesn't always get up right away either. And so when I came in here, I noticed a starport. I was able to kill a few SCVs before he responded, and he just had his troops. He just expanded, and he had his troops out here. So it took him a while to get back in his base. I wanted to see if there was a starport on there. I mean, a tech lab on there, so I scanned him, but I didn't see anything. So you can see he just has 2 at this point, 2 siege tanks. I only have 1. And so I got my own starport out. I thought it'd make, oh actually I've got 2. Thought it'd make a Viking to help. I knew there was going to be some kind of air coming my way, so a Viking is good against Banshees. Banshees will take out a tank pretty quickly though, even if you have a Viking. So you need a couple turrets, and you want to put your tanks kind of behind the turrets. If they don't really have any Banshees, their tanks will blast them, but better to do that than. And Marines, you have to be so careful with Marines against tanks. They'll just run in if they get shot at. They're so easy to draw into the battle, and then they'll all die. So you just got to be really careful. Got scanned. He put up this perimeter sensor tower. Usually I ignore it. I totally ignore the sensor tower, because most of the time when people do this, they think you're not going to do a drop or something, and so they won't build any turrets because they know they're ready for you, or at least supposedly they're ready for you. And one good tip is always drop away from the front door, and always drop, I would say, away from the mineral line. Don't drop right in the middle unless you just have a huge drop. But even then, it might be better to drop in the outside areas. And this isn't really a great idea. I could have dropped a siege tank here, flown my medvac over, and shot from below. That would be kind of cool. But I just load. He builds a Banshee. It's not a cloaked Banshee. You can see, even though I'm shooting it with my Viking, he kills a tank. So I wasn't too happy about that. But got 2 fully loaded medvacs. I did bring a siege tank. This kind of dropping will usually give you the victory, in my opinion. It just will. It's something you have to do. Whether you're playing Protoss or Terran or Zerg, if you do drops well, you will win. the game. I'm sure of it. You just cannot constantly defend expos very well, and you can get behind enemy lines so easily. And using the tank strategically will win you the game. So all his stuff was moving out at the same time I was dropping in. Have you ever noticed a lot of times in StarCraft it seems like both players are moving out at about the same time? That's kind of funny in my opinion, but anyway. So he's bringing in some infantry, but my siege tank's going to completely obliterate them. And the beautiful thing is you can stem and heal and stem and heal, and my opponent just wasn't really sure what to do, and he decides to counterattack. But because I have enough siege tanks up, his counterattack is not going to be effective. He's got some tanks here. I pull back, I heal up. I've got the range advantage because I have air support, so my siege tank can see further if he tries to sneak up on this tank. I was thinking about dropping a couple Marines, but there's so many tanks here, I didn't think it was going to be effective, and I thought I would just try to maybe drop over here instead. And I noticed he had no turrets, so I went ahead and did this drop. He does run in here and basically suicide off. Well, he kills my tank off, but meanwhile he didn't seem to notice I had redropped, and most of his probes had been killed. He still had a few more, but guess what? No turrets. He built no turrets. And you know, his attack here, he does some damage, and it's possible had he microed better over here, he might have been able to do some real damage, but he did not micro well, and he did okay. He did kill several of my tanks, and at this point, this was perhaps a bad decision because I didn't know these tanks were still here. If they were still sieged up, if he had vision, he might have been able to shoot my army, but I decided to just bring in all my troops and go for his expo because I knew he had pulled in pretty much all of his tanks, and he did have some tanks over here. He didn't get them out fast enough, and it's amazing, you know, you just get one tank in the right place. It can be really hard to take out that tank while it does a lot of damage. So you see here, I get the tank in the right spot, and he brings in all of his tanks, and I don't have that many troops, but just look at the damage. It just goes to show how important it is to have your siege tank in the right place at the right time. Those siege tanks, unsieged, can only shoot one unit at a time, and of course they're doing less damage. So game over. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.